श्री श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव देवी सुभद्रा माई की जय, निताय गौर की, निताय चैतन्य की जय, नरसिंहदेव भगवान की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। नमः ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन् इति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna devotees, welcome for this Seshadri Brahm's Srivas Angan chapter for the morning Srimad Bhagavad-gītā session. I think the series that we are going through this month seems to be on mind control, something related to do mind. So all the verses seem to be talking about that aspect of it. So today I have been asked to take up a second chapter, contents of Gita summarized, verse number 62 and 63. I remember last maybe 10 days back, maybe we did 2.62, 30th September or something like that, we did 2.62. So we will be doing today 2.62 and 63. So let's go to the verse now. 2.62 is like this. Dhyayato vishayan pumshaha sangastejo pajayate sangat sanjayate kamaha kamat krodho abhijayate. The translation is like this. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them. And from such attachment, lust develops. And from lust, anger arises. We will see the next verse also. So it's a continuation of that. Krodhat bhavati sammohaha. Sammohat smriti vibramaha. Smriti bramshat buddhi nasho. Buddhi nashat pranashyati. Translation. From anger, complete delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. So now we will try to understand Srila Prabhupada's purport for these two verses. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from such attachment, lust develops, and from lust, anger arises. So this is all in relation to the question asked by Arjuna earlier. How does a person who is situated in a good state of consciousness, how does he behave, how does he act and all that? So that the Lord is actually giving the symptoms, how the person who is understanding, who is self-realized, how he will behave. And while doing so, he is explaining the concept of how a person actually falls into the trap of being led away from the devotional or the devotional service, or in other words, in the pure consciousness. So what is this concept? So he is giving the concept. If we are able to and it is very, very beautiful, right? This can be applied everywhere. Universal application. If we can apply that, then it's easy to actually come to this platform of pure consciousness. In this case, spiritually, the discussion is about the spiritual elevation, not simply about anger management or something like that. Okay, that's fine. These are byproducts. Like, if you are able to, if you are not into spiritual life or wanting to elevate your consciousness spiritually, but simply want to be a nice human being, Even they can apply these principles, but naturally that should lead to this higher consciousness. That is important. But originally this was explained so that people understand how I do not fall into the degrading material consciousness but remain in the spiritual consciousness. So the logic is this, that when you are materially, if you are developing some kind of an desire for some material objects, sense objects, when we are contemplating, I discussed this earlier, I think most of you were there, so I will try to not get too much into that explanation of this, but in terms of the how we get attached and all that, we'll try to see a little more different aspects of it. But anyway, so when our senses are contemplating on the object, then we naturally develop attachment to them. That obsession about that particular object comes into play. When so attachment is not obsession, but that leads to that obsession. So you get attached, you are all the time thinking about it. But when you are all the time thinking about it, then that lust develops, to enjoy that more, or that it is mine, it is mine, it is mine, that kind of a thing develops. Attachment leads to that lust. And when we are in lust, anger arises. We can see this, generally it's said, in lust, we are very obsessed with the thought of an object or of that object. And if there is some kind of a competition to that, then it leads to anger. Or if there is some impediment in enjoying it fully, there is anger. So you understand that very clearly. That means if I am very much possessive of something which I love so much, and if someone else tries to also enjoy it or tries to come in the way of that, we get anger. So you can understand this. Even in relationships, I am very possessive. You can see that, the child, I was seeing something yesterday, where there's a small child who's like 2-3-year-old child, and he is brought in front of the mother, who's now got that second child, that fresh baby in the hand. Then this child is becoming crazy. This child who's now seeing his mother having his brother, who's just a newborn baby, and he's throwing tantrums he's doing. So now this is clearly what we are seeing. That means he is so much obsessed with his mother. Now he is saying that, the minute the mother, there is another competition, another child coming and taking her attention. And the impression of that soul, who may be a child, but the same principle is working there. That now I am obsessed with my mother, now there is something else which is impedimenting. There's an impediment because she is not looking at me now, she is holding that child and caring for that child. This soul in the form of the child body is in this because of that lust relating to anger. Lust means you don't always think of this lust as a sex desire. Lust means it is over attachment to something. So it can be for objects also, not necessarily people immediately relate this word to sex desire. No. So he is obsessed with his mother, naturally a child, and he sees competition for that, then he gets anger. So this is you can see this in all spheres of life. Men getting attached too much to his wife, and then there's a lot of problems because of that. If anyone says hello to the wife, then he gets angry. Or vice versa also. They are too much upset. They are always thinking, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? Then there is always this suspicion. They are all the time looking at that person's every activity, and it's maybe simply out of love for them, but it becomes too much for the other person. He can't be 24/7, expecting me to be always relating to him, or the vice versa, or to her like that. You can see this in everywhere, or it could be on simple material objects like we see our iPhones or our laptops or our cars, or some fancy items that we have at home. Anything, it could be your furniture, so many things like that. So the thing is, this is the principle. So if we understand this, then we should not try to engage or contemplate on the sense objects, because it is natural that it will go. Because Prabhupada says, the senses require real engagement. This is to be underlined. So there is this example, we think, the senses are actually like, when we become older or something like that, the senses don't need engagement. That is not true. It is possible that the senses are becoming weaker, that you are not able to enjoy, but the desire to enjoy is always there. There is one example given in one of the scriptures somewhere. There is one king and minister. So there this discussion that king has this thing, how is it that you can control your senses and all that. So the people are saying, no, with the age and all that it will go away, kind of a thing. So that minister says, no, it doesn't go away. No, how are you saying? You see these old people are much mellowed down, they are very, mature and all that. No, he says, no, it's not that. But then this argument goes on. People put in various, no, by experience you have actually experienced all these things, so you sort of become mature, you are calm, you are quiet and all that. He says, no, that is not very true. You have to, the senses are always looking for enjoyment like that, the minister says. So then how to prove this? So he says, okay, king, you go and find out in your kingdom, if there is anyone is just about to die, who is little old, like not little old, who's actually lived his life and is about to die. So you find out if there is someone like that, I will prove to you that it is not that, because of age, your desire is not there. So then naturally king has all resources at his service. He says secret agents, okay, you go and find out quickly his mechanism of his network. They immediately find out there is one guy who is in the deathbed right now, who is like 90-year-old. So this is the person, this is the address like that. So the king says, the minister says, okay, let's go. But you should bring along with you your beautiful daughter, young daughter. He has that king. So the princess you bring with him. And then they go to that house and he says, before they enter the house, the minister gives him king some instruction. As we enter the house, you should observe the man's attention, the death body, the person who's in the deathbed, his attention, how he is behaving. You just keep very closely observing that. So they enter that house. Immediately as they enter, then the man in the deathbed, 90-year-old man's deathbed, 90-year man who's in the deathbed, his eyes goes to that princess. Not the king has come, the supposed to be the most senior there, the most respectable personality, but the eye go to the girl there. So later when they come out and the minister says, did you observe? He says, yes. So then he says, see, the problem is the senses are always needing real engagement. It is craving for gratification. But if it is, sometimes it is not in a good state, it is not in a powerful state, so it cannot, that frustration that, okay, you can see in today's world also, people even when they are 70s and 80s, they try to look very handsome, and women also try to look like that. Why? I am done and dusted, everything is over. Why? But that inclination is there, that that sense gratification inclination is there, so they try to be at their best. And people also take all sorts of medications and all that. Why? Why? You're done. You're over. Everything is over. But why? Because that is always there. It is subtle. We may not be as gross as we think. As gross as I am speaking, but it is very, very subtle, because this is conditioning which has been there going on. Charvita Charvananam, it is mentioned, right? We keep on chewing the chewed. It doesn't matter how many times I have chewed, I will always. The senses are like that. It is not that I am wrong, but it is the property of the senses. Therefore, then what should I do? So, Prabhupada writes, and if they are not engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, they will certainly seek enjoyment in the service of materialism. So, this is the principle. So, the senses always seek engagement. It doesn't matter how old you are, what you are. As long as it is having idle, it will look for some gratification. Then, what is the mechanism to control it? So, in fact, there was another example I can give. I talk of all these things because this is practical. This is what we see around our world. This philosophy is not something which is just there for a book and it has got nothing to do with our actual real life. That's why I keep talking about real situations in life so that we can easily relate and apply in our life. So there was one Discovery Channel or one of those channels, this Kumbh Mela, right? So this was previous time, not this time. That time. So there, all these saintly, you see all these sannyasis, they come, they are like very, very exotic sannyasis, they come and they do odd things. So there was this BBC fellow who was interviewing some of these sannyasis. The one fellow was actually, one sannyasi, he was putting a big rock tied to his penis and he was hanging that and swinging that rock like that from his penis. And this was being recorded for the BBC National Geographic, I think, yeah. One of those things. Then, I mean, impossible to do such things, right? You know, it's a delicate part and how you hold a big rock and sway it there and all that. So he's interviewing him. So he's saying, how are you doing this? You know, this is all because of my yogic power, I can do all that and all that. And in the course of the discussion, he asks, don't you ever get sex desire? So that man says, because the Westerners can't imagine this thing that, you know, one can be completely celibate. That man immediately says, no, yeah, everyone gets. Casually he says, no, everyone gets. Then he says, then how are you managing? No, it's simple. There is no big challenge there. You just deviate the mind. That's all. That man says, and he moves to that yogi. He immediately changes the topic. So now you can see here also, he's a Mayavadi, but he's applying this principle that your senses need engagement, and if you are trying to contemplate on that object, it will keep on taking you to further and further degradation. You immediately take it off the mind, that thing off the mind and engage it in something else. This is the technique that if you are obsessed with something in your mind, just change the subject and move on. We do this very often with children, right? Children sometimes become very obsessed. They roll over on the ground and cry and all that. The intelligent parents, they deviate the child by giving something else into that child forgets what happened the last minute and it suddenly becomes miles and then changes that behavior. So this is important, and here it says this is for not simply, as I said, materialistic anger management or something like that. The concept is, the more I am attached to the object of the senses, the problem I get into it. But my senses need engagement. Otherwise, if I don't engage it, it's a problem. Therefore, it actually, how to engage it, put it in higher consciousness, higher taste we call it. So here Prabhupada gives this example of, he says even Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, he says in the material world, everyone including Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to say nothing of other demigods in the heavenly planets, is subjected to the influence of sense object. And the only method to get out of this puzzle of material existence is become Krishna consciousness. He is giving this example. Lord Shiva was in deep meditation, but was disturbed by Parvati. And as a result, Kartikeya came. But he gives the example of Haridas Thakur, who was very young, in his 20s. And Maya Devi incarnation, one came in the form of a lady who came and said, I want to have a nice time with you, enjoy with you. Why don't you? I'm young and I'm beautiful. Why are you simply sitting and chanting and all that? He says, you all know the story, so I don't want to take a lot of time explaining that story. But he is not at all disturbed. In fact, on the other hand, what he does is he makes her come 3 days and wait while he's chanting. He says, I will finish my chanting and I can engage with you. 3 days he's continuously making her wait there. She's sitting and seeing him. By associating with him and while he's doing his devotional service, the lady's heart transforms and she becomes a great saintly person. And then, that's it. Then he walks and he says, you keep this place and you now preach Krishna consciousness, I will move out of this place because there's some lot of envy by other people. So he says, why? Okay, so I will go away to some other places. Why this lady was sent was because of envy by some other people. So he says, why to unnecessarily get into it? So you keep this place, you be here practicing Krishna consciousness, I will go away. So he goes away. So Prabhupada is comparing, if someone is engaged in Krishna's service, to handle all these things, the object, contemplation on the object, or to develop a lust on those objects is not there. Then where is the question of anger coming for such a person? So this is what Prabhupada is talking. And he's also quoting Sri Yamunacharya's one verse, maybe possibly in the previous verses you would have written in the purport, where it says Yamunacharya sings one song where he is saying, I am so much attached to you for Krishna that any thought of sexual activity, I feel like spitting on that. So that's so lower taste for him. Krishna consciousness is so higher taste. So even when you are in Krishna consciousness, all these things looks like, repulsive. Oh, how can people, that kind of feeling they develop because they are in a very highly elevated consciousness. So that Prabhupada is giving example. Therefore, finally is concluding, one who is not therefore in Krishna consciousness, however powerful he may be in controlling the senses by artificial repression, is sure ultimately to fail, for the slightest thought of sense pleasure will agitate him to gratify his desire. These are very powerful words. On one line Prabhupada writes, he is saying, right, however powerful he may be in controlling the senses by artificial repression, is sure ultimately to fail. And why? For the slightest thought of sense pleasure will agitate him to gratify his senses. And we will see in the next verse explanation how these things works in terms of people who are also trying the self-realization method but not taking up devotional service as the process. Right? In this verse, Krodhat bhavati sammoha, sammoha smriti vibramaha, smriti bramshat buddhi nashat pranashyati. From anger, complete delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool, the sequence of things. So in the earlier verse, we are come to the stage of anger. When we are very, very, very angry, then what happens is we are sort of disillusioned, right? So like if I continue that example, like I was obsessed with my wife, and because of my obsession, there is always some agitation or some friction between the man and the wife, because you are all the time micromanaging her or whatever. Then her behavior towards us becomes a little different, and then we are disillusioned. Oh, I thought this object, because my mind doesn't look at it as a person, it looks like an object. Or it's, in this context, it says, senses when contemplating the object. So then I am sort of disillusioned. Oh, I thought this is the best thing to have, but it is like this. So that delusion happens. So bewilderment, because I am confused now, bewilderment of memory. And when memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. This is the most important thing. My rational thinking is lost. Sometimes I may be highly qualified. I may be considered a very balanced person in the eyes of others. But if I am in this loop of attachment and lust and anger, that loop is there. It doesn't matter what your general status is. When that happens, even the best of men or women get into this loss of intelligence. We can see, even some today's cases are going on, so-called saintly persons are arrested. But how such things can happen? because they fall into this trap. So intelligence is lost, and when the intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. So when intelligence is lost, we see, sometimes we get angry, we start shouting. Many very educated, very gentlemen, when they are angry, they start using very bad words. Right? Hey, what is this? I can never imagine you speaking like this. Actually, he is not speaking because his normal, balanced, intelligent self is lost. This is simply a body which is rattling out. So sometimes that's why when people are shouting in anger, we discount that. We don't consider that they really are speaking. Oh, you spoke like that, you spoke like that, we say. But actually that person didn't speak. He lost his intelligence. So if a lunatic speaks something, will you give importance to that? But we keep on saying, oh, you said like that the other day. Because that guy was not in his senses that day. So he said that. So we should sort of discount that. That time he was in this loop. So his intelligence is not there. He is not the actual person speaking. It is simply the body which is rattling out some words. But I know it is difficult to digest that. But this is the science. So we understand, okay, he's right now mad. The mad things, when someone is saying something, we don't give seriousness to that. Okay, leave it. But before that, what was he saying, and after that, what is he saying matters. Not when he's in that rage. We should discount whatever the person, he or she says in that rage, leave it out. Because when the intelligence is lost, it's a madness, right? What is there? So there Rupa Goswami, one particular verse is quoted. Prapanchikataya buddhya hari sambandhi vastunaha mumukshubhihi parityago vairagyam plagu katyate. This is Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.258. So this translation goes like this. By development of Krishna consciousness, one can know that everything has its use in the service of the Lord. So now the application of it. Yes, my senses need engagement. It cannot be thinking that it is now calm and controlled. No. Then how do you engage it? So it is given here. So therefore everything actually has a use. So those who are without knowledge of Krishna consciousness artificially try to avoid material objects. And as a result, although they desire liberation from material bondage, they do not attain to the perfect stage of renunciation. This so-called renunciation is called palgu, or less important. Therefore, the point that is made is, so don't try to artificially renounce your senses. If you try to do that, that is not very important. So this impersonalist trying to do a lot of what we call this austerity, right? Big austerity. Oh, 15 days they have not eaten, they have only taken a drop of water, this, that, and all that is okay. Nice. But if it is not connected in line with the devotional, the reason of that doing that is not devotional service, then it is useless or less important. So for example, today, now we are in Chaturmasya or Damodar month. So there are a lot of austerities many of you will be doing. Some will be eating one time a day, some will be sleeping on the floor, so many things like this people will be doing. They will be residing in dams, in very cold condition, whatever, all of these things will be there. So if it is all directed towards Krishna's satisfaction, then that is perfect. But if it is simply, I want to control my senses, I want to take cold bath, I want to lie down on the floor, that is palgu. That means it is less important. The point there is, if we continue to read, on the other hand, a person in Krishna consciousness knows how to use everything in the service of the Lord. Therefore, he does not become a victim of material consciousness. So now we can take an example for an impersonalist who is not in devotional service but also trying to do self-realization. They see that God is impersonal, he does not have a form, so he cannot eat. So if you have a form, you have a mouth, you can eat. If you don't have a mouth, if you don't have a form, what you will eat? There's nothing called eating. So, and he does not require eating. That so-called God without a form does not need any eating because there's no body. This is how they think. Now, if that is the situation, then I should not eat because I am aiming towards becoming God, right? I should not eat. So I will try to control my senses of eating, that pleasure of eating, nice palatable food. This is their status. But on the other hand, a devotee knows that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, Purusha, Parama Purusha. Purusha means enjoyer. One who enjoys is called a Purusha. So this Krishna is the Parama Purusha, supreme enjoyer, and therefore he likes to eat. Therefore, what this devotee does is offers very nice bhoga to the lordships. Bhoga means enjoyment. So he gives bhoga, he gives enjoyment to the Lord. The Lord eats nicely. And then that food is become transformed into prasada. We say no. Karma, akarma, vikarma. This becomes akarma. That means this is purified of the reactions. When the prasadam is basically purified matter now. Or it is no more matter, it is actually spiritual. Because Krishna has touched it. Pure spirit has touched it. It has become transformed into spirituality. Therefore, there is no karma for it. So when I eat prasada, it is akarma. But if I eat ordinary things, it is karma, then I will get the resultant of eating that one. But here the resultant is only sukruti, not punya or papa. So that devotee eats actually nicely, but he is not at all affected by this material consciousness. Therefore, he is engaging his senses, not simply restraining them like a Mayavadi. He is eating, but he is not at all affected by this material consciousness. So that is the example Prabhupada is giving. He says that everything therefore becomes spiritualized and there is no danger of the downfall. The devotee takes prasadam in Krishna consciousness, whereas the non-devotee rejects it as material. The impersonalist therefore cannot enjoy life due to his artificial renunciation. And for this reason, a slight agitation of the mind pulls him down again into the pool of material existence. So now you understand this. So basically the soul, we say, no, when many times we ask, what is the purpose why you are born? People will give many reasons. The purpose of me is to serve the people. The purpose is to serve my mother. The purpose is to achieve this. Yes, all of these things are there at some level. But even that is for what? Ultimately, it is about for enjoyment. Everything is about, the soul is all about enjoyment. Krishna is all about enjoyment. But only thing is, that enjoyment is placed in the wrong platform. That is the only problem. Enjoyment is a natural expectation of the soul. Soul is always blissful. Ananda. Krishna is Paramananda. Soul is Ananda. So, we are supposed to be Ananda and we are looking for Ananda everywhere. So, but question is, Ananda in relation to Krishna is the real Ananda, but we are misplacing that, how we get that Ananda by thinking material things can give us this Ananda. So that is the whole problem. So our idea is to shift this seeking Ananda in material things and placing it in the spiritual platform, then it is perfect. So in the spiritual world, you can see Krishna is nicely eating, devotees are nicely eating, they are enjoying nice fun games. No, we should not play any games. I am a sincere, pure, I'm a very serious devotee. You can see my Jayapatak Maharaj, my spiritual master, they go into the water and all the devotees play in that water games and all that. It's not like, oh no, we will not play a game, no, this will take me away from Krishna consciousness. No, I am serious, this is all material. The question is, in spiritual world there is game. So Krishna and the boys play games, there are games like we see that the boy, they have to think, and whichever team loses, they have to carry the other team on their shoulder and run and all these things. We have seen such pastimes of the Lord. So there is amazing games there. So the soul is actually eager to participate, but only thing is participate with Krishna, not without Krishna. Without Krishna is this material consciousness. With Krishna is pure consciousness. So therefore the idea is, don't get attached to material senses. Senses want to enjoy. Therefore you can't artificially stop it, engage it, but engage it in relation to Krishna. And in course of time, we will be situated in a platform which is completely spiritual, nothing to do with material. So that is the theory, and we saw practical applications of that. And if we are able to practice this in day-to-day life, we can try to come to this perfection someday or the other. Hare Krishna, I stop here. If there are any questions, comments, welcome.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I'll just, the class was about senses, even at this, when you grow older also. Prabhu, just about 3-4 months, I was abroad. And over there, most of the foreigners are tall, and average height of a woman was 5'8", the men 6'2", fair, blue eyes, proper, like whatever you could imagine. And many times I used to turn around and say, wow. No, my eyes used to roll. Then immediately I used to say, Dekho, Krishna, he can make such beautiful things. I still remember Prabhupada saying, isn't she beautiful? So I said, isn't it? So Prabhu, your senses don't die. I mean, we just artificially try, to press them. It's only if you this is my experience. Prabhu, like just recently, it's only when you make that shift does it come. Like, anytime, Prabhu, you say something, but, and if you have a liking for something, your mind always goes in there. It does. It takes a lot of control to say no or to dovetail it to Krishna. But then you have to make it a habit, I suppose. You have to be conscious about it.
Yes.
Thank you, Prabhu.
I'm reminded of when you talk about this, foreigners looking very handsome or beautiful women also. Prabhupada, there was one time, Prabhupada was, about to board a flight. So Prabhupada is standing in the queue. There is one lady who's before him standing there. This is in, memories of Prabhupada. One thing where one devotee said this, was there with Prabhupada at that time. And Prabhupada was seeing this lady was there in front of him. And, Prabhupada made a comment. She's so beautiful, she's perfect. And this devotee didn't expect this from Prabhupada, right? You can't expect Prabhupada to be saying someone is beautiful and all that, right? He thinks materially, what is Prabhupada saying? They're uncomfortable. Devotees become uncomfortable. In fact, that lady also hears Prabhupada says that if someone appreciates, everybody becomes happy, right? Then she turns and she said, oh, thank you very much, like that. Then he said, I just made a statement of fact. Like he didn't want to, so his idea was not to make that lady feel, you are great, I am actually fallen for you or anything like that. When she came down, thank you, like that. And he said, no, I'm just taking the statement of fact. So Prabhupada did not see this as, he saw this is reality. When someone is beautiful, that's a fact. But if you are looking at it materially, then you get sense object triggers there. But Prabhupada was not at all in that. He is looking, like you said, it's Krishna's creation. In Krishna's creation, there are some beautiful things. And he states it's a statement of fact. It's got nothing to do with my material. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said it. We would have think how many times I think before I say, how can I say this? I am a devotee. If I say this, what will people think? But Prabhupada was natural, but he is always Krishna conscious. So these are things which sometimes as beginners, we may sometimes think, no, this is not right or wrong. But of course, I'm not saying therefore we all start talking like that. But I'm saying, if you understand the principle is important. So thank you for sharing that, Hare Krishna. So Sri Hari Prabhu, over to you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranams.
Dandavat Pranam.
Prabhu, so can we start Damodarashtakam? We will be singing Damodarashtakam, some devotees, and we'll continue to the next part. Yes.
Sure, Prabhu. Please
Thank you
carry
so
on.
much. Thank you so much, Vidura Prabhuji, for your wonderful class. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.